released this new line of newly designed mini cabinets full of arcade favorites, and you can't talk about arcade favorites without talking about Pac-Man and Frogger. Yep, just like Coleco decided that these two arcade heavy hitters would be perfect for the first arcade mini cabinets way back in 1981, Bandai decided that they would also be perfect for their first line of their own miniaturized arcade cabinets. And let's start off by talking about Pac-Man. Pac-Man! Okay, so most of us already know the story of Pac-Man, and I'm not going to waste any time going into it, but for those of you who don't know, allow me to give you a little synopsis. Pac-Man was released in arcades in 1980 and proceeded to take the world by storm. It was a mega deal, hugely popular, spawning multiple other video games based on Pac-Man, its own Saturday morning cartoon show, merchandise galore, even a board game. And there was even Pac-Man wallpaper. I should know, it was in my room when I was a kid. Pac-Man was an ultimate hit, an instant classic, an arcade favorite to be sure. And so, soon as the concept of a miniature arcade cabinet started being thrown around, Pac-Man was at the top of the list. It was in 1981 when Coleco first released it, and the same is true in the 2000s when Bandai got involved. And I should say, in the interest of accuracy, that Bandai was only partially involved in the release of the first wave of the miniature arcade cabinets. Yes, though I had said that Bandai had released a cadre of miniature arcade cabinets in the 2000s, that statement wasn't entirely accurate. As you're about to find out, the miniature arcade cabinets that were released in the more recent years had multiple versions, each one newer and more evolved than the last. It seemed like every other year they were cranking out newer and more advanced versions of these. Each of these waves would have miniaturized versions of different arcade titles and simply rehash some of the other arcade classics as well, such as Frogger and Pac-Man. Back to my original point, and as I had mentioned earlier, the first wave that was released in the 2000s wasn't released by Bandai alone. However, they were released with the permission and promotional help of Bandai. These were actually released by a company called Basic Fun Incorporated, which to me is a suspiciously obvious name, as if it were a front to some kind of drug cartel. But it's legit, and this company was primarily responsible for bringing the miniaturized arcade cabinet into the future. Which brings me to their release of Pac-Man. And this sucks. And I'm going to enjoy telling you why. For one, take a look at the screen, and the fact that the maze is already pre-printed on it. You already know you're in for a pretty shitty time. This isn't for showcase purpose. This is not a sticker. This is the actual screen. But wait, it gets better. Let's check out the gameplay. Oh boy. Sit and marvel at the technology on display here. Though this might look like one on the surface, this is not a miniaturized arcade cabinet. This is just like one of those damn Tiger Electronics handheld games. I mean, for guacamole's sakes, I've had more fun spelling things on my calculator, like boobs, or boobies, or shoe, or shoes, or shoeless. And by the way, what do you call an out-of-work pimp? Holess. All right. So let's check out the sound. Okay, the sound's not bad. Sounds pretty good. Sounds almost like the original. But there's only one little thing wrong with it, and I'll show you. Okay, let's say you had to go take a leak, or you had to listen to somebody real quick, so you pause it. All of these things come with a pause feature, by the way, which is a nice touch. And when you normally pause a video game, as in pretty much all the video games that have ever existed, it goes quiet. But not this. Check it out. Oh my word. What is going on here? Not only does it play music for some reason, but it is so obnoxious. Thankfully, these things come with volume control, and if you can stomach playing this really shitty version of Pac-Man, I recommend just turning the sound off. This is simply a terrible version of Pac-Man and a pitiful excuse for a miniature arcade cabinet. Hell, the 1981 Pac-Man miniature arcade cabinet is better than this. I mean, not by much, but at least the screen on that one lights up. And I could understand if this was released in, say, 92 or 93. But no, this one was released way into the 2000s. There is no excuse for using this kind of dated technology. And here's the thing, and by the way, they also released Space Invaders with this same kind of groundbreaking technology. But at the same time, they also released Centipede and Frogger. Both of those had full-color light-up screens. So why did they do these two in the most shitty way possible? I just don't understand why you would do that. You know what? Never mind. Let's move on. Now, at the same time period, Pac-Man would eventually have a re-release with a full-color light-up screen. And good old Basic Fun Incorporated would be responsible for most of these newer releases. It's important to point out that Basic Fun Incorporated would end up releasing two separate lines of these miniature arcade cabinets. There was the first line, which included the really shitty versions of Pac-Man and Space Invaders, and this would have multiple waves of title releases, such as Joust, Miss Pac-Man, Asteroids, Tetris, Q*berts, Breakout, and Galaga. And this line even included a redo, a mulligan, if you will, of Pac-Man, which this time included a fully illuminated and color screen. So thank you, Basic Fun Incorporated, for bringing Pac-Man to the 21st century. The titles included in this wave are rather primitive and basic versions of the games, but you really can't expect too much from these things. They are what they are, and hell, they're still better than the first version of Pac-Man.
Watch the full episode here, as well as other classic Cat Manos VHS pirate ship adventures. And please hit subscribe.